now. Hello, everyone. I'm so sorry. I am talking about things to the people in Discord. Um, we will be starting at probably the 30-minute mark. We will be reading We Have Never Been Modern. The book will be up soon. Don't worry. I also might not have the Discord recording, so they might not be able to hear you either way when I switch to the fucking book thing. I forget if I already had that set up. I think I did because of other things, but I might not have. I might be bad at what I do. But listen to the pretty music and relax your pretty little heads for right now. It's time. Okay, we're starting early because it finished early. Ah! That's the wrong thing. That's my music. That's the wrong thing. That's the game. This is the right thing. Like three of the wrong things. Um yes, you no you can't cuz it's muted cuz the output is muted. Now you can all be heard.
Oh,
Now you're
all right.
now you're all audible.
Hello.
And that's the sponsor of today's Bruno Latour reading, audible.com.
Don't you know that listening is the new reading, or whatever
Yeah.
it was?
Will you also be streaming the thing on the Discord, or do you want us in your reading?
Sorry. I meant to already be doing that, but I just wasn't.
If you could also post your copy,
Yeah.
so that I can add it to my.
I meant
collection,
to do all this, but I didn't. I completely forgot to do all this before I started. Ninja, at
Yes.
point of order. You can be heard on the live stream, which you're not unfamiliar with. So it's
Oh, very well now.
yeah. So just know if you say anything wrong, the people about this book, people will know and they will judge you for
Yeah.
it.
They will hear me
Make sure not to
speak of
say
heresies.
anything offensive, like you usually do.
Yeah, Ninja.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Just adding We Have Never Been Modern to my
Alors,
Latour.
alors tout le monde, nous allons lire Nous n'avons jamais été modernes par Bruno Latour.
It's Bruno Latour. And Brooks, what can ant be applied to? Well, it can't be applied to anything. That's what it says. That's what Bruno Latour says.
This is a francophone stream now. I have colonized it.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What do I want to talk about? Do I want to explain anything, or do I just want to jump in? Okay. I will explain one thing. Oh yeah, it's probably true. I gotta turn you guys down. I gotta kill you guys. There we go.
Oh no.
Now you guys are probably
Please.
quieter than me.
As it should be.
Or you're probably on the same level. I don't know. I can't tell. And I won't look. It's the audience's job to tell me if it's fine. Yeah, okay.
I'm in the audience, but I'm not. I don't have it unmuted because then I would be hearing double.
Yeah.
So,
What do I we can probably just get into this because that's why I was lab live. I didn't really explain anything because you can kind of just get into it and I can kind of just talk about things and explain things as we go on. Um, uh, we have never been modern is about um I'm going to say um it's about kind of what it sounds like. It's about the fact that well we have actually never been modern. Um and it's kind of as simple as that. And Latour will explain what he means as he goes on. By this. But yeah.
So, how do you want to do this reading? Is it only you
It's
reading?
only me. It's only me, Estelle. You don't get to read.
Yeah.
This is my reading group. I'm the dictator. This is not communism.
Okay, sure.
Well, if you do need us to read, I think I would love to read, but up to you.
Yeah. If any, also before we start, point of order. Another point of order. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the side chat, or on stream, and I'll read them out, and it'll be all good. So don't worry.
As in not speaking.
Sorry, you can speak. Sorry, you can speak.
Oh.
That's sorry.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure because you said in the side chat or
yeah,
in
I
the
didn't.
chat.
I
was
didn't,
like,
I didn't
oh,
actually mean that. Yeah, I lied. I didn't actually mean that.
Yeah.
But yeah, feel free to interrupt me at any time. I will probably leave space at the end since I have people. Since you guys are here in the in the actual chat, and I'll probably just ask at the end of every or probably most paragraphs any questions, comments, or concerns, like I do in my other readings. So you'll be hearing a lot of that. All right, but to start off, Chapter 1, Crisis, 1.1, the proliferation of hybrids. On page 4 of my daily newspaper, I learned that the measurements taken above the Antarctic are not good this year. The hole in the ozone layer is growing ominously larger. Reading on, I turned from upper atmosphere chemists to chief executive officers of Atochem and Monsanto, companies that are modifying their assembly lines in order to replace the innocent chlorofluorocarbons accused of crimes against the ecosphere. A few paragraphs later, I come across heads of state of major industrialized countries who are getting involved with chemistry, refrigerators, aerosols, and inert gases. But at the end of the article, I discover that the meteorologists don't agree with the chemists. They're talking about cyclical fluctuations unrelated to human activity. So now the industrialists don't know what to do. The heads of state are also holding back. Should we wait? Is it already too late? Towards the bottom of the page, third world countries and ecologists add their grain of salt and talk about international treaties, moratoriums, the rights of future generations, and the right to development. It's a fucking great thing. I before we continue, I love the way this book starts. It has, I think, one of my favorite openings out of all of Latour's books. Besides probably Aramis or Factish Gods. They those two also have really good openings. Yeah. Before I continue, any questions? Any comments? Any concerns?
When was this book written?
1987. We have never been modern. I don't
The reason
think
I
it
ask
was.
is because
No, not 87, 91. 87 is
91.
Science in Action. Yeah.
Okay. The reason I ask is because this the article that's referenced here is like about the ozone layer, but it's interesting how much that dates the book because nobody talks about the ozone layer anymore, really, because it
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
to have been a problem we fixed.
Well,
Some
it was also fixed by the banning or the reduction in usage of CFCs,
yes,
fluorocarbons. So
Mhm. Maybe an interesting thing to analyze at some point, but I do think it's interesting.
The newspaper he's referencing.
No, I actually just meant the story of how people coordinated to stop using
Oh,
the chemicals.
yes, it's actually probably the perfect uh the tour book topic.
Yeah, if
It
only
seems like something he would write about.
exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah. The same article mixes together chemical reactions and political reactions. A single thread links the most esoteric sciences and the most sordid politics, the most distant sky in some factory in the Lyon suburbs, dangers on a global scale in the impending local elections or the next board meeting. The horizons, the stake, the time frames, the actors, none of these is commensurable. There they are, caught up in the same story. Um, One of the things I will say, I forget if he uses the term actant in this, but when he's talking about actants, you can they are basically the same thing as actors. They aren't. They aren't actually the same thing. But the difference is, but you can kind of use them interchangeably. Uh, I don't know exactly how to describe an actant versus an actor. I've been trying to figure out how to do that. Besides, an actor is something that is more concrete, while an actant is more abstract. Um, it is actant. He borrows the term from literary theory and alters its meaning slightly for what he does. But actants are usually talked about when referring to non-humans, but not always. Non-humans can also be actors. Um, it just it's a thing. Commensurable here, I assume, means reducible or comparable to one another. Yes, yes, yes. Um, all right. Well, if no one has anything else they want to add, I will continue. On page 6, I learned that the Paris AIDS virus contaminated the culture medium in Professor Galileo's laboratory. That Mr. Chirac and Mr. Reagan had, however, solemnly sworn not to go back over the history of that discovery. The chemical industry is not moving fast enough to market medications, which militant patient organizations are vocally demanding. The epidemic is spreading in sub-Saharan Africa. Once again, heads of state, chemists, biologists, desperate patients, and industrialists find themselves caught up in a single uncertain story, mixing biology and society. Any questions? Any comments? Any concerns?
the Paris AIDS virus. That would be a reference to something that was happened in 91. Let us check.
Yes. He's talking about Paris AIDS. I'm gonna say episode. It autocorrect. No. Paris AIDS virus. I'm gonna just type in 1991. Yes, it is. It's called the infected blood scandal. In April 1991, the doctor and journalist Anne-Marie Castret published an article in the French weekly magazine, I can't read that, showing that the I can't read
Write
that
it down.
either. Knowingly distributed blood products contaminated with HIV to hemophiliacs in 1984 and 1985, leading to an outbreak of HIV/AIDS and hepatitis C in numerous countries. And I'll put the two. The first one is the magazine, and then the second one is the vampire place.
L'événement du jeudi, Centre national de transfusion sanguine. The Thursday event and the National Blood Transfusion Center.
Yeah. On page 8, there's a story about computers and chips controlled by the Japanese. On page 9, about the right to keep frozen embryos. On page 10, about a forest burning. It's columns of smoke carrying off rare species that some naturalists would like to protect. On page 11, there are whales wearing collars, fitted with radio tracking devices. Also on page 11, there is a slag heap in northern France, a symbol of the exploitation of workers that has just been classified as an ecological preserve because of the rare flora it has been fostering. On page 12, the Pope, French bishops, Monsanto, the fallopian tubes, and Texas fundamentalists gather in a strange cohort around a single contraceptive. On page 14, the number of lines on a high-definition television bring together Mr. Dolores Thompson, the EEC, Commissions on Standardization, the Japanese, again, and television film producers. Change the screen standard by a few lines, and billions of francs, millions of television sets, thousands of hours of film, hundreds of engineers, and dozens of CEOs go down the drain. I will just continue since this is like the introduction. Basically, and just interrupt if you have anything to say, or type in chat. Either one's fine. Fortunately, the paper includes a few restful pages that deal purely with politics, the meaning of the Radical Party, and there is also the literary supplement, in which novelists delight in the adventures of a few narcissistic egos. I love you, you don't. It would be dizzy without these soothing features, for the others are multiplying, those hybrid articles that sketch out imbroglios of science, politics, economy, law, religion, technology, fiction. If reading the daily paper is modern man's form of prayer, then it is a very strange man indeed, who is doing the praying today while reading about these mixed up affairs. All of culture and all of nature get churned up again every day. And this is going to be the thing. I'm pretty sure he's going to get to hybrid soon. Forget how this is exactly structured. It's really early on in the book that he gets to it, but I forget how soon it is. But we're going to come up on it really soon, so bother explaining it right now. And this is going to be the thing about the kind of the mixing of everything. and sorry, I lost my words. I had a way of saying it, but now I don't. So, if no one has anything else to add, if no one has anything they want to add, I will continue. Yet no one seems to find this troubling. Headings like economy, politics, science, books, culture, religion, and local events remain in place as if there was nothing odd going on. The smallest AIDS virus takes you from sex to the unconscious, then to Africa, tissue cultures, DNA in San Francisco. But the analysts, thinkers, journalists, and decision makers will slice the delicate network traced by the virus for you into tidy compartments where you'll find only science, only economy, only social phenomena, only local news, only sentiment, only sex. Press the most innocent aerosol button and you'll be heading for the Antarctic, and from there to the University of California at Irvine, the mountain ranges of Leon, the chemistry of inert gases, and then maybe to the United Nations. But this fragile thread will be broken into as many segments as there are pure disciplines. By all means, they seem to say, let us not mix up knowledge, interest, justice, and power. Let us not mix up heaven and earth, the global stage and the local scene, the human and the non-human. But these imbroglios do the mixing, you'll say. They weave our world together. Act as if they didn't exist, the analysts reply. They have cut the Gordian knot with a well-honed sword. The shaft is broken. On the left, they put knowledge of things. On the right, power and human politics. Any questions? Any comments? Any concerns?
What is an imbroglios?
It is Pippa put it best. It is a tangled or confusing situation. It literally I think refers to a confusion. Well, like if you just look it up. Extremely confused, complicated, or embarrassing situation, or the archaic, a confused heap. It is I would probably like to say tangled more. Because it fits with the metaphors Latour goes on to use, but you could also say a confusion.
Interesting. I would have thought that it, like, based on the context, it seems like I'm a little confused just by the sentence here, just because it says, but these imbroglios do the mixing. But if the imbroglio is the state of confusion, in what sense does it mean that the state of confusion is what is doing the mixing up of things? I don't.
It's referring to a confused situation, a tangled situation. It is to kind of I guess to kind of probably oversimplify and maybe in some sense miss what Latour might be saying. It'll probably become clear as we go on. Um, um, the AIDS epidemic, the aerosol, these all,
Yeah, well,
they are the imbroglios.
yeah, I'd say that it's less about like those separations are innocent. It's actually those situations, those particular situations are the source of the confusion in for categories that would be otherwise innocent. They are perfectly clear.
Yeah. They are the imbroglios are confusing because we do the cutting. Latour, I don't think says it becomes more clearer, but things are allowed to become more clear uh, by acknowledging um, 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 I'm gonna say tangledness because it fits with some other stuff, but that might not be the right language for this book.
Okay. I'm gonna
Also, what
I
Wag's
take a
saying
breath.
inside chat. The hole in the ozone layer, the Paris blood scandal. These are imbroglios. Yeah. And then Ninja says that's why this statement, but these imbroglios do the mixing is made. It's playing with the dichotomy of keeping these matters separate or not. Yes. Yes, yes. Yes. And then
It's kind of like, or to use analogies, to be kind of saying that, oh, our borders are perfectly perfectly are perfectly distinct. They distinguish the country from what is not the country, except for that crossing, which is the site of. But the rest, there's no there's the, or except for that country that's bordering that's constantly. Anyway, I think it's maybe not the best analogy.
no, I think that's fine. I think that's fine, Estelle.
Yeah.
Recruiter says, "Who's that? Who's they that cut the Gordian knot? The analysts or the laity?" Um, it's the analysts, but also kind of more broadly, he'd be talking about anyone like anyone doing this, making these clean separations, making these supposedly clean separations. And then Wax says he's being sarcastic. Yeah, he's being sarcastic. Yes, yes. Latour is very sarcastic sometimes. Retying the Gordian knot. For 20 years or so, my friends and I have been studying these strange situations the intellectual culture in which we live does not know how to categorize. For lack of better terms, we call ourselves sociologists, historians, economists, political scientists, philosophers, or anthropologists. But to these venerable disciplinary labels, we always add a qualifier of science and technology. Science studies, as Anglo Americans call it, or science, technology, and society, whatever label we use, you're always attempting to retie the Gordian knot by crisscrossing, as often as we have to, the divides that separate exact knowledge and the exercise of power. Let us say, nature and culture. Hybrids ourselves, installed lopsidedly within scientific institutions, half engineers and half philosophers, tears and Stuarts. Without having sought the role, we have chosen to follow the imbroglios wherever they take us. To shuttle back and forth, we rely on the notion of translation or network, more supple than the notion of system, more historical than the notion of structure, more empirical than the notion of complexity. The idea of a network is the Ariadne's thread of these interwoven stories. Also, I forget what tears insurance is. Probably pronouncing that wrong, but Does Tears Instrument just mean tiered instruction? That can't be right. I feel like that's wrong. Probably French, because it's from Serres. Estelle, help me. What is it? Is it French? What does it mean? I assume
Might be what's the reference to? I know it's Serres, but what
it's
specifically?
literally a book called um called something like, I just had it up. It is literally Latier's Instrument. That's what the name of the book is. The instructed third parties. Oh, okay. Yes. That makes sense. And then Wag says, nature, knowledge of things, science, culture, exercise of power, politics, kind of fake divide. Theory insists on these categories, but reality produces hybrids. That is what we will be getting into. That is true.
So
Yeah.
I looked it up. I found a book review from Karsten Pallison. I don't know who that is, but um it explains a little bit what the Tiersinstruit is. It's so the title, the Tiersinstruit, is compounded from the juridical term for third person as arbiter and from the term meaning education or enlightenment in the broad sense. The educated arbiter represents Serre's idea of the philosopher of our time. He combines juridical, ethical, and scientific reflection in a new discourse on laity, I think is what it says, like lay. I'm guessing like lay person, laity. I'm not sure, but that's what I found.
Yeah, lay people considered as a group. Les tiers instruits. Les tiers instruits.
Was I? Was I? I had a thought and I lost it. I had a thought and I lost it. Yes. Serge comes up for Latour quite a bit. It's I didn't realize. It's kind of hard for me to have realized how probably important Serres is to some of Latour's work. And it didn't really hit me until Brooks sent me a draft of one of the scripts he was making. To ask my opinion on it, and it was it I definitely see why Latour uses Serres. Yet our work remains incomprehensible because it is segmented into three components corresponding to our critics' habitual categories. They turn it into nature, politics, or discourse. And these, those, just thing. These will be the three things that Latour will generally talk about. There's also something that he calls the crossed out God, but even when I read it, I still wasn't exactly sure how to explain it. Latour explains it, but I don't think I could. I do not think I could. Yes, yes, yes. It's part of the modern parenthesis. He calls it. They divide it into these three things, and then there is also the crossed out God is literally what he calls it. Yeah, yeah. It comes up later. It comes up. It's a whiles away. It's a pretty long time away. Yeah. When Donald Mackenzie describes the inertial guidance system of intercontinental missiles, when Michel Coulon describes fuel cell electrodes, when Thomas Hughes describes the filament of Edison's incandescent lamp, when I describe the anthrax bacterium modified by Louis Pasteur, or Roger Guillemot's brain peptides, the critics imagine that we are talking about science, man, technology. Since these are marginal topics, or at best manifestations of pure instrumental and calculating thought, people who are interested in politics or in souls feel justified in paying no attention. Yet this research does not deal with nature or knowledge, with things in themselves, but the way all these things are tied to our collectives and to subjects. We are talking not about instrumental thought, but about the very substance of our societies. Mackenzie mobilizes the entire American Navy and even Congress to talk about his inertial guidance system. Coulon mobilizes the French electric utility, EDF, and Renault, as well as great chunks of French energy policy to grapple with changes in ions at the tip of an electrode in the depth of a laboratory. Hughes reconstructs all America on the incandescent filament of Edison's lamp. The whole of French society comes into view if one tugs on Pasteur's bacteria. It becomes impossible to understand brain peptides without hooking them up with the scientific community, instruments, practices, all impedimenta that bear very little resemblance to rules of method, theories, and neurons. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Yes. Uh, uh, um, okay. There's okay. I'm trying to remember if Latour talks about um impedimenta in this. In some of his other books, they gain uh 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 a kind of specific meaning. Um, in the book I'm thinking of, and I forget if it's Politics of Nature. Oh, is impedimenta just equipment? It's hard to remember. Uh, that actually makes. Never mind. That actually kind of makes sense. Um, that actually makes sense with something else he says. In the other book I'm thinking of, which I don't think it comes up. I don't think it comes up in here. He talks about speech impedimenta. Um, um, uh, uh, as a thing, and that actually that actually plays pretty well off of it. Impedimenta, whatever, Estelle. Well, you know what, Estelle? There should be an I there, and that's what I'm trying to get at when I mispronounce it. Wag says I would stress more necessary equipment. Provision sorts of get there. Because Estelle typed objects such as provisions or baggage that impede or encumber. Things which impede or hinder progress, encumbrances, baggage. Wag says you can't climb a mountain without impedimenta, ropes, food, tent, warm clothes, etc. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, um, yeah. I'm almost certain when I read this, I looked this up, but I always forget the Latin words Latour uses or the Greek words that he uses. I'll always forget them because they're Latin and Greek. I'm more liable to remember any French word he uses. All right. Well, if no one has anything else to add, we will continue. But then surely you're talking about politics. You're simply reducing scientific truth to mere political interests, technical efficiency, to mere strategical maneuvers. Here is the second misunderstanding. The facts do not occupy the simultaneously marginal and sacred place our worship has reserved for them. Then it seems that they are immediately reduced to pure local contingency and sterile machinations. Yet science studies are talking not about the social
Wait,
context.
sorry. Sorry, it took me a second. I was away from my desk, but I was hearing what you were saying. Impedimentia means like something like I don't know how he means it, but militarily it means literally heavy baggage.
Yeah, yeah, that's what Wag was talking about inside
Yeah.
chat. Yet science studies are talking not about the social context and the interest of power, but about their involvement with collectives and objects. The Navy's organization is profoundly modified by the way its offices are allied with its bombs. EDF and Renault take on a completely different look depending on whether they invest in fuel cells or the internal combustion engine. America before electricity and America after are two different places. The social context of the 19th century is altered according to whether it is made up of wretched souls or poor people infected by microbes. As for the unconscious subject stretched out on the analyst's couch, we picture them differently depending on whether their dry brain is discharging neurotransmitters or their moist brain is secreting hormones. None of our studies can reutilize what the sociologists, the psychologists, or the economists tell us about the social context or about the subject in order to apply them to the hard sciences. And this is why I will use the word collective to describe the association of humans and non-humans in society to designate one part only of our collectives, the divide invented by the social sciences. The context and the technical content turn out to be redefined every time. Just as epistemologists no longer recognize in the collectivized things we offer them the ideas, concepts, or theories of their childhood. So the human sciences cannot be expected to recognize the power games of their militant adolescents in these collectives, full of things we are lining up. The delicate networks traced by Ariadne's little hand remain more invisible than spider webs. Subject stretch on the analyst couch. Is that a Deleuze reference? Yeah, probably.
No, it's probably a reference to like many of the people who took psychoanalysis to task, or just psychoanalysis in general. Like
Yeah.
the point is to like this is the model of psychoanalysis. So obviously Latour is influenced by Deleuze, and I think that you can honestly you can see that like all up to this point when he's talking about um like cleaving the Gordian knot, as he calls it, and and like making these reductions to these specific domains of knowledge. At least to me, it reminds me of uh, strata, as talked about in like A Thousand Plateaus, for example. Um, that might just be me.
Also, something to note: Latour will say collective singular. It's not actually singular. Latour just uses it in the singular. There is not really one collective. Is for Latour, it's kind of complicated. He'll sometimes say things like the collective or just but it isn't actually a singular thing. It isn't actually a singular thing necessarily. And then Pippa, kind of as we're going along, given notes. I'll read these out. So 2 mistakes looking at science studies. 1, you were looking at science and tech. No, not just nature and knowledge. 2, is it politics? No, not social context. Rather the interaction of social power with collectives and objects. Science studies exist across the nature-culture divide. It is a hybrid. Yeah, that seems good. Any questions, comments, or concerns before we move on? I will continue. But if you are not talking about things in themselves or about humans among themselves, then you must be talking just about discourse, representation, language, text, rhetorics. This is the 3rd misunderstanding. It is true that those who bracket off the external referent, the nature of things, and the speaker, the pragmatic or social context, can talk only about meaning effects and language games. Yet when Mackenzie examines the evolution of inertial guided systems, he is talking about arrangements that can kill us all. When Cologne follows a trail set forth in scientific articles, he is talking about industrial strategy as well as rhetoric. When Hughes analyzes Edison's notebooks, the internal world of Menlo Park is about to become the external world of all America. When I describe Pasteur's domestication of microbes, I am mobilizing 19th century society, not just the semiotics of a great man's text. When I describe the invention, discovery of brain peptides, I am really talking about the peptides themselves, not simply the representation in Professor Gilliman's laboratory. Yet rhetoric, textual strategies, writing, staging, semiotics, all these are really at stake, but in a new form that has a simultaneous impact on the nature of things and on the social context, while it is not reducible to the one or the other. Any questions? Any comments? Any great concerns?
I think what's interesting to me is just how much of a beating Latour gets from, I guess, like people who strawman like post-structuralism when he makes these kinds of statements. Like, to me at least, this reads as a critique, not necessarily of post-structuralism itself, but the way that it is often applied in academia. And you'd think that like people would notice that when criticizing Latour. Like, it, I've read many bad papers in social theory that do the thing that he's describing of basically taking like textual analysis, like Derridian kind of stuff, and reducing it basically to an analysis of literal texts and not really expanding it at all. And it's interesting that Latour has this kind of criticism of his fellow academics, considering that he ends up just getting lumped in with them anyway. And it's not exactly hard to find this kind of stuff.
Latour mentions it. He makes this the critique of himself in his second book, in his third book, Science in Action. He makes it as soon as there. So he talks about it because in that he talked about in lab life. He talks about things as kind of um how do I explain? He talks about what a lab does is like as producing literature, and in the beginning of Science in Action, which is basically the continuation of lab life. It's where he thinks he could have gone farther with it, maybe, or he wants to improve upon it. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Um, he starts out like he does in lab life. He basically explains the thesis he kind of lays out in lab life, except a lot quicker. And but then he goes on to say, but they're not just producing literature. Like scientists in labs are doing more. They're doing something else as well. That I didn't describe in my previous book. That I didn't really describe in my previous book. And so it's like, it is one of those things. Yeah, he gets lumped in with a lot of people. He talks about it a lot. He's like, people will tell him he hates science. He loves science. The funniest story is the beginning of Pandora's Hope, which starts out with the example of he was at a conference and someone came up to him and asked him, do you believe in reality? And it was very, very weird. It was very weird to him.
Do you believe in reality, Envy?
There's nothing to believe in. You don't need to believe in reality. It's you don't need to believe in reality. It's a silly question.
I am angry. You don't believe in reality.
Yeah. That's what they say. Our intellectual life is out of kilter. Epistemology, the social sciences, the sciences of text, all at their privileged vantage point, provided that they remain separate. If the creatures we are pursuing cross all three spaces, we are no If the creatures we are pursuing cross all three spaces, we are no longer understood. Offer the established disciplines some fine socio-technological network, some lovely translations, and the first group will extract our concepts and pull out all the roots that might connect them to society or to rhetoric. The second group will erase the social and political dimensions and purify our network of any object. The third group, finally, will retain our discourse and rhetoric, purge our work of any undue adherence to reality, Horresco reference, or to power plays. In the eyes of our critics, the ozone hole above our heads, the moral law in our hearts, the autonomous text may each be of interest, but only separately. That a delicate shuttle should have woven together the heavens, industry, text, souls, and moral law. This remains uncanny, unthinkable, unseemly. It's fucking, I love the beginning of this. It's so good. Does Horresco reference just literally mean what he says it does? What he says before? Relating to horror. Tell me what it means. I shudder as I tell is what I'm getting off of Wikipedia. Yeah. I feel like I should have known that because when Sunday was talking about the the one book about horror, I think he used the word. I think he said the word. But before we continue, any questions, any comments, any grave concerns? I'll take that as a no. The crisis of the critical stance. The critics have developed three distinct approaches to talking about our world: naturalization, socialization, and deconstruction. Let us use E.O. Wilson, Pierre Bourdieu, and Jacques Derrida, a bit unfairly, as emblematic figures of these three tacks. And the first speaks of naturalized phenomena, when societies, subjects, and all forms of discourse vanish. The second speaks of fields of power, then science, technology, texts, and the contents of activities disappear. The third speaks of truth effects, then to believe in the real existence of brain neurons or power plays would betray enormous naivete. Each of these forms of criticism is powerful in itself, but impossible to combine with the other two. Can anyone imagine a study that would treat the ozone hole as simultaneously naturalized, sociologized, and deconstructed? A study in which the nature of the phenomena might be firmly established and the strategies of power predictable, but nothing would be at stake but meaning effects that project the pitiful illusions of a nature and a speaker? Such a patchwork would be grotesque. Our intellectual life remains recognizable as long as epistemologists, sociologists, and deconstructionists remain at arm's length. Critique of each group fitting on the weakness of the other two. We may glorify the sciences, play power games, or make fun of the belief in reality. Do not mix these three caustic acids. This seems to be pointing out the very problem with specialization. Interdisciplinary work gets pinned and torn to pieces. Yeah, kind of. That's almost certainly kind of it. I feel that. And also Sirius says, I appreciate that he says that it is a bit unfair. Yes! Despite him in some places criticizing Bordeaux, he still he maintains that there is a whole bunch in his work that is like should be saved. It's like he did good work. Like he will say this of basically like anyone he criticizes. Like it, he most of the people he critiques. Before we continue, any questions, any comments, any grave concerns? All right. Now we cannot have it both ways. Either the networks my colleagues in science studies and I have traced do not really exist. The critiques are quite right to marginalize them or segment them into three distinct sets: facts, power, and discourse. Or the networks are as we have described them, and they do cross the borders of the great fiefdoms of criticism. They are neither objective nor social, nor are they the effects of discourse, even though they are real and collective and discursive. Either we have to disappear, we bearers of bad news, or criticism itself has to face a crisis because of these networks it cannot swallow. Yes, scientific facts are indeed constructed. They cannot be reduced to the social dimension because this dimension is populated by objects mobilized to construct it. Yes, those objects are real, but they look so much like social actors that they cannot be reduced to the reality out there invented by the philosophers of science. The agent of this double construction, science with society and society with science, emerges out of a set of practices the notion of deconstruction grasps as badly as possible. The ozone hole is too social and too narrated to be truly natural. The strategies of industrial firms and heads of state is too full of chemical reactions to be reduced to power and interest. The discourse of the ecosphere is too real and too social to boil down to meaning effects. It is our fault if the networks are simultaneously real like nature. Is it our fault if the networks are simultaneously real like nature, narrated like discourse, and collective like society? Are we to pursue them while abandoning all the resources of criticism? Are we to abandon them while endorsing the common sense of the critical tripartition? The tiny networks we have unfolded are torn apart like the Kurds by the Iranians, the Iraqis, and the Turks. Once night has fallen, they slip across borders to get married, and they dream of a common homeland to be carved out of the 3 countries which have divided them up. That's a frickin' reference. That's a thing. Latour always has the craziest sounding things to reference. Any questions? Any comments? Any concerns? What is the Kurds being torn apart referring to? No, you're fine, though. Ninja says that's powerful. Yes, it is. It's very good. Latour has very good things. We'll probably stop after this next section. But I don't know how long it'll be. But we probably will. This would be a hopeless dilemma had anthropology not accustomed us to dealing calmly, straightforwardly with the seamless fabric of what I shall call nature culture, so that a bit more and a bit less than a culture. When she has been sent into the field, even the most rationalist ethnographer is capable of bringing together in a single monograph the myths, ethnosciences, genealogies, political forms, techniques, religions, and epics and rites of the people she is studying. Send her off to study the Arapesh or the Akuar, the Koreans or the Chinese, and you'll get a single narrative that weaves together the way people regard the heavens and their ancestors, the way they build houses and the way they grow yams or manioc or rice, the way they construct their government and their cosmology. In works produced by anthropologists abroad, you will not find a single trait that is not simultaneously real, social, and narrated. Any questions? Any comments? Any grave concerns? Yeah, and with what Latour talks about, it kind of does make sense. That's how Latour talks about it in Lab Life. He's kind of doing anthropology, but back home. If the analyst is subtle, she would retrace networks that look exactly like the socio-technical imbroglios that we outline when we pursue microbes, missiles, or fuel cells in our own Western societies. We too are afraid that the sky is falling. We too associate the tiny gesture of releasing an aerosol spray with taboos pertaining to the heavens. We too had to take laws, power, and morality into account in order to understand what our sciences are telling us about the chemistry of the upper atmosphere. Ninja says he's the anthropological observer looking at a tribe who its people called themselves neuroendocrinologists. Yes. Yes. Yes, but we're not savages. The anthropologist studies us that way, and it is impossible to do with our culture, or should I say nature culture, what can be done elsewhere with others. Why? Because we are modern. Our fabric is no longer seamless. Analytic continuity has become impossible. For traditional anthropologists, there is not, there cannot be, there should not be, an anthropology of the modern world. The ethnosciences can be connected in part to society and to discourse. Science cannot. It is even because they remain incapable of studying themselves in this way that ethnographers are so critical and so distant when they go off to the tropics to study others. The critical tripartition protects them because it authorizes them to reestablish continuity in the communities of the pre-moderns. It is only because they separate at home that ethnographers make so bold as to unify abroad. Any questions? Any comments? Any concerns? I'll take that as a no. The formulation of the dilemma is now modified. Either it is impossible to do an anthropological analysis of the modern world, and then there is every reason to ignore those voices claiming to have a homeland to offer the socio-technological networks, or it is possible to do an anthropological analysis of the modern world, and the very definition of the modern world has to be altered. We pass from a limited problem, why do the networks remain elusive, why are science studies ignored, to a broader and more classical problem. What does it mean to be modern? We dig beneath the surface of our elders, surprised at the networks that, as we see it, weave our world, we discover the anthropological roots of that lack of understanding. Fortunately, we are being assisted by some major events that are bearing the old critical mole in its own burrows. The modern world, in its turn, is becoming susceptible to anthropological treatment. This is because something has happened to it. Ever since Madame de Guermantes-Salon, we have known that it took a cataclysm like the Great War for intellectual culture to change its habits slightly and opens its doors to the upstarts and beyond the pale before. Alright. I would have went a little bit longer, but my head's starting to really hurt, and I'm not being too good at thinking right now, or reading as well. So before we go though, any final comments? Any concerns? Any questions?
No, I don't think so. Thank you very much for
No,
reading.
yeah, the first part is pretty self-explanatory because it's just this part is pretty self-explanatory simply because he's not he is, but he also really isn't laying out his positions in all that much detail. He's kind of laying out his positions, but not in the detail he will later on, and not like he does in books like Lab Life or Science in Action. He's kind of more playing around with things a little bit in the beginning of this, so there's not really any questions to ask. There's not really much to. If I was of a more competent mind right now, I probably could have more to say about it. But yeah. Ninja says, my final comments will be that I must prepare to read Michel Foucault and find textbooks. Yeah, something like that. Also, but yeah. Well, bye, stream. Bye, stream.